I've been there.
We started our kids off there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, she
And
tried.
it's a great place to work.
Sure,
Especially
there's
for
nobody
starters.
there.
And it's like $45.
Mm-hmm.
For less than $100, you can outfit kids with everything, and that includes business.
That's where I took my brother the first time he went skiing. So I took him up there and let him a lesson. He ended up having a private lesson.
They're super cute.
Well, I found, one thing at least with my pass, all the perks I get, like I got a free lift, I get one free lift ticket with it. Then I get discount family and friends discount, get 10 of those. You get great discounts on rentals. They give you.
You own your own boots?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And they offer all the, they give you discounts on everything but alcohol. Merchandise, food. Probably that now.
I'm sorry,
When I was in Copper Mountain the 1st of November, they were just all over the parking lot out there, just
puffing away.
And it wasn't even legal yet.
Next thing they'll be smoking in the corrals on the lift lines.
Oh, I'm sure of that. And the thing is you won't even have to buy anything. You've been high, just standing there.
We rode on a chairlift. There's a guy who's got season tickets to the Broncos. He said, on the causeways out there where people walk up, and those were the smoking section. And everybody just smokes pot there. And his seats are right by that.
That's gotta hurt the beverage stand.
That just makes you more thirsty. But he said his little boy was sitting there going, Daddy, I'm getting sleepy.
On Riggin this morning on the radio was talking, I'm listening to KBIN, and she was saying this morning, they were talking, her and David, the other guy, talking about the fact that, food chains didn't ever spend a lot of money with late night, like after hours TV, because it wasn't profitable, but it will be now.
Yeah.
Especially places like Taco Bell and Taco Bell.
Yeah, they're going to do a great business.
Now, what would you call that?
Did you see all the tents by Chick-fil-A down there in the Lowe's parking lot?
Oh, boy.
There was about 15, 20 tents in the parking lot. People lined up.
Kathy and I just came by and there was a whole bunch of people standing.
Did you see all the tents?
Oh, we didn't see the tents. No. Oh, those smokehouses? I've got the kettle tray. Yeah. I don't like the kettle.
Worked out perfect.
Here's your kettle. Those are yours? Apparently they've already made like $150 million.
I'm sure.
Colorado.
Well, and think about how many money they have.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they're not going to.
If they think they're going to shut down the
underground,
they're not going to
shut down.
because they don't want to pay those taxes.
No. That's money in the pocket.
It's just like
And
waiters
trust me,
and
they're in
waitresses.
it for the money.
It's just like waiters and waitresses and hairdressers and all of that. They would love for you to pay by cash. Especially tips.
I'm sure Kansas is cleaning up. Every time I drive back and forth, and driving back, There's always drug checkpoints set up on 970 all the way. Waiting for the first person to hit the exit.
Down on the west end?
Hmm?
That's funny.
They usually run them out by Junction City or Riley and Everett. And they set them up before you hit an exit, and the exit is just a gravel road running north and south. There's no service or anything. And, people hit the exit first thing to go dump their weed off. And the college girls sitting down there waiting for them to pull off. Uh-oh.
If that wasn't so bad, it was fun.
Yeah. You'll sit back, think, and what you're going to do is all right. Soon as it's going to stop. Happy.
It's a good bill, I like it.
Technology. We'll see what happens.
What did you say?
Please do. Please.
I need to find it again. I need to see
What?
your bill.
This one? I just. Yeah.
I'll post it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
electronic. Oh.
I still like the cottage board.
It's been
Gonna do
filed.
it.
I wouldn't do it, and someone else already
I was
got it.
gonna say,
Parkinson.
Parkinson.
Yes.
The one
Said
good
they
thing
did.
that Webb did.
Huh?
The one good thing that Webb did.
Yeah.
John's out there right now.
I was going to go out there last weekend, but it was like trying to find accommodations for Christmas time. It was like, I'm not going to, because I was just going to go by myself. And,
So you know why? Not in Cleveland.
I know.
A lot of times, the other cabs, from the same cab, that's a blackout.
That's a blackout weekend, and well, you're not going to do any bargains on lodging at all. It's ridiculous. I'm not going to pay $150,
You know who you should call when you're going is Chris Kelly. He goes out a lot too. Just say,
No, I go out there quite a bit just by myself. Well, so far today, we've had two. Yeah, what about veterans? You know veterans?
No.
it's my first committee today. Third. What did you guys have this morning? Will you stand corrected now? I have throat too. We don't go to I can tell them I was so.
And then you talked to Megan yesterday, right? About the language.
Right.
Yeah.
She
That'll be,
got me a copy of what
yeah,
it is.
yeah.
Have you heard what happened with her child?
Who?
Different Megan.
Oh, different Megan.
Oh.
You heard anything? Megan?
Megan Limbaugh
Limbaugh?
from
Analyst?
she's from Human Resources, apparently she's child based.
Oh, yeah.
Like a toilet.
Everybody hear about how the house
Who was that?
one of the servants of Luke?
Oh, really?
Yes, she wasn't raised.
I just went in to, yeah, Vincent said she was really fast.
Some lady that was serving in the department. Oh, really?
All right, leave that one.
One of the sinners.
We did kind of look for you.
Jimmy Jones. Did she goes, I guess it's Sugar Jones.
Member of Parliament.
Luckily, when she went down, somebody said, I didn't go over started to go over, and I thought,
Yeah, of course it's home.
I'll be directed to me.
I don't, usually that's what
I don't know exactly.
Jane made us done.
I need to talk to Brian. Did you say the janitor?
No, I said Jane. I don't know how we get old.
That's the one that,
I can't hear you.
who?
No, I had this one.
You did.
I've got 3 letters.
What I did?
I did prefer it, but I didn't.
One of them is Jennifer.
Oh, yeah.
Now it's sending
They probably did a good thing.
I'll follow you.
Just kind of mark it down.
I'm here.
Kathy and Diane are here. Mike's here.
We've got one full day on it.
We just do a lot of that.
I was watching the basketball game on ESPN.
They could have used about 7 more points.
Okay. We have a 2:00 meeting, Mr. Chairman, that's why we're here.
I'm sorry for being in early, but hopefully it will.
You don't get it before.
Well, you had that sub for 1100 for 1098.
Put it in the peanut butter.
Well, yeah, it requires them to appoint a real director, not an interim director, and then it's not one acting director.
Oh my
Without
God.
confirmation.
Everybody's doing wrong. The acting director didn't want it. Yeah, long problem.
How are you?
We'll move over here, that way we'll go.
$5 late fee. $5 late fee jar is over there.
That's right. This morning, honestly, didn't work. Yours didn't.
Either one doesn't matter. Personal.
We'll have to report that. That's right.
John, the $5 late fee jar is over there.
I think that everybody's in.
It went up.
Well, the way I look at it, Jay's got plenty of money. Yeah, Jay's fine.
What was it, Gideon?
Oh, I didn't even catch that.
Let's see, who had a birthday?
Started off with, well, it's actually was Sunday.
Sunday.
The Committee on Professional Registration and Licensing is coming to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Representative Burleson. Representatives Elmer. Allen. Anderson.
Here.
Barr.
Here.
Brown.
Carpenter, Cornejo, Breaker,
Here.
Frame, Franklin,
Present.
Frederick, Henson, Keeney, Crackey,
Here.
Lamb, Lichtenegger,
Here.
Mayfield,
Here.
McCambidi, Moon. Here. She says her mouth full. Moon. Munsell.
Here.
Nichols. Peters. Rhodes. Swan.
Here.
Swearingen. Walton Grace. Okay. Wanted to say thank you to the committee for coming here. I know it's a different location. The previous chairman, Senator Watson, who is now Senator, he had one of the committee hearings here when I was, I think, in my freshman term. And I found that it was enlightening to see and meet all the staff that really take the laws that we pass through this committee and are the ones responsible for putting them into production. And really where the rubber meets the road. And so they have graciously opened up their office here for us, and they'll be offering a tour and be presenting afterwards. We'll get to meet the staff here, and so before that, we'll have an official hearing on House Bill 1100, which is sponsored by one of our members, Representative Fraser. And whenever you're ready, go ahead. I apologize for we don't have a mic system, so if you could, for the benefit of everyone in the committee, keep your voice level raised, and then whenever we have testimony, if you could, either if you're not at the front row, if you want to testify for or against the bill, you can come forward, either one of the chair at the end, or it's up to you if you want to rise so we can see you. But I just appreciate everyone coming to this and being patient with the accommodations. I think that this is a great opportunity for our community. And with that, I'm happy to hear testimony on Hospital 111.
Thank you, Chairman Mark Burleson. Just for the record, I'm representing Glendale Breaker. I represent about half of Webster County and eastern portion of Greene County, which has part of the city of Springfield. But I'm predominantly here with this bill today because we've had some issues in Webster County concerning non-for-profit and religious organizations when dealing with fundraising efforts. I do have a couple of witnesses here, maybe three, that want to testify in support of the bill. If you all have a summary on the table, and I think if all of you have a copy of that, it does a very good job of summarizing what this bill does. Currently, the statute says that, and I don't have a copy of the current statute with me, I should have, but it says that basically a non-for-profit or religious organization shall be subject to the state food code through the local health inspectors if they are serving potentially hazardous foods. Well, the question came up when we started studying this issue, what's potentially hazardous foods? But just about anything. Certainly anything, meat, dairy, things of that nature. Cream pies, even fruit pies can be potentially hazardous too. So it really, the language really was pretty much wide open to allowing local health departments utilizing the state food code, which at the time it was the 1999 food code. I think maybe there's been a new one now, maybe a 2009 one that's possibly been enacted last year. But it pretty much allowed the local health departments to come in and regulate anything they wanted when it came to church socials, potluck dinners, raising funds for the youth groups, non-for-profit organizations, chili suppers that you might want to be, the Masonic lodges that I know in our county traditionally had chili suppers and have had for many, many years. And they started inspecting these organizations as far as not allowing them to serve chili made at home. They dictated that they had to go to local restaurants, purchase chili, then bring it to the Masonic Lodge and sell it as a fundraiser. Well, as most of you know, most of our small rural communities, we were built on potluck dinners and church socials, and even the first Thanksgiving, I think they probably all carried the food in from the teepees or wherever. So what we're trying to do here is exempt not-for-profits and religious organizations from being inspected by these local health inspectors. And the only thing that, and actually in our county, up until probably 2-3 years ago, our local health inspectors that we had been very good to work with. They understood the nature of what these small communities were trying to do, and all that they asked was that a placard be put up, similar to one that you would have in a business that says not responsible for accidents. This placard says that the serving location states that the food was prepared in a kitchen that is not subject to regulation and inspection by a regulatory authority. So basically telling the consumer this hasn't been inspected, and you're basically eating at your own risk. And so we have that language in this bill to help answer any questions that some may have about that, and we let that in here. We did exclude Jefferson County, St. Louis County, St. Charles County, and the city of St. Louis, just because last year this bill went through the Senate, and the representation on the Senate side asked that be done, and we complied. They have a lot more people and a lot more things, and so they wanted to be exempt, and we accommodated them on that bill, and we filed the bill on the House side this year with that same exemption. With that, I think I've covered pretty much what the bill does, and I'll be glad to take any questions.
Representative Craig. Proceed.
Representative, I think we talked about this a little bit last year. We had a similar bill with Representative Webb, and then you wanted to do an amendment. My concern has always been the ingredients part for people who are allergic to things. I mean, I know a lot of people who are allergic to food. Would there be a problem to put a little placard of the ingredients out, or that's my concern with this?
Well, I understand your concern. I have a niece that has an allergy concern, a severe problem, and I know at any function that she attends with our family, there are certain foods that her mother brings for her to eat because she can't eat what's there. And I think most people that have those kinds of issues, allergies to peanuts or whatever, they're aware that when they go to a potluck, I think they know that they have to be aware of what might be in those foods. So I think it would be pretty difficult to ask anytime you had a church potluck or whatever those folks to put the ingredients of every dish on that placard. I think that would kind of add a lot more of a burden to this bill. But I mean, we're certainly open to discussion and anything that anybody can help do. Again, it's kind of potlucks are pretty much eat your own risk. When I used to run a store, we had potlucks periodically, and there was certain food that we would eat, and certain food that we wouldn't eat from people that brought it in. We kind of knew who to eat from and who not to, but that was just based on our own knowledge of those particular employees. And I'm sure some of the rest of you know what I'm talking about. And churches are the same way. So that's my feeling, but I understand your concern.
Maybe next Representative Cornejo and then Walter Craig.
First of all, thank you for presenting this bill, because what I tell people is in my district, I don't have a single Walmart or a single golf course, but I have 6 Catholic parishes, with 2 more about a quarter mile outside of them. So by the end of the summer, my wife's sick of chicken dinners from churches. But the question I have is, it says a nonprofit organization, but I'm just wondering if that's defined at some point. Maybe not maybe already defined in another chapter that deals with the same thing, or is that something that we need to look into, is placing, or is that just something that if you qualify for IRS nonprofit that?
That's a good question, Representative. As a matter of fact, I had that same question, and Bob and Megan they answered the question for me by printing off what a 501c3 is, and according to, I think, the IRS, Bob, you might chime in.
Yeah, 501c3, religious, charitable, those organizations would be included, and that's referenced all through statute. So
Yeah.
we're gonna add that into a substitute.
Yeah, and we have the list of what those are: religious, educational, charitable, scientific, literary, testing for public safety. You know, so it is defined in the statutes.
All right, and so then my other question was in paragraph 3, it says, you know, they may notify the regulatory authority in writing. And then it says, if made, such notification shall include. And so, I mean, I'm just kind of wondering what this may sound ignorant or flippant, but it's not meant to be. What's the point? So if they may do it, then all of a sudden now they got to follow all these guidelines.
That's another really good question. It's up to the discretion of the organization whether they want to notify the authority or not, but they're not required to. However, we have an apple festival down in Webster County, down in Seymour, that's a very big, well-attended event. They cook barbecue chicken and they cook corn dogs, and they may want the local authorities to come and inspect what they're doing in order to just prevent any situation that might occur. And on those larger type functions like that, I would say it could be recommended to do that. But we're not mandating that it be that way. However, right now, according to statute, any size event, whether it's a small fundraiser at the church or a larger event like that, it is mandated that the local health authorities, if you're serving potentially dangerous food, potentially hazardous food, that they would have to come and inspect. So this just gives that option. You're probably right. The language maybe wouldn't have to be in there, but it does at least suggest it if someone wants to do that.
And then my last question was, and you kind of touched on it, was, you know, I represent St. Charles County, so I'm just wondering, it may not be the place to talk about it, but why St. Charles County is excluded?
I would suggest you talk to your senators on that. And I'd more than welcome an amendment to put them back in myself. So.
All right, thank you. That's all.
Yeah, question I was going to ask about the May, the military on St. Louis, and also, and also was concerned about the, not concerned, but St. Louis County, St. Louis City, of course, it's much larger than some of the small towns, and I didn't realize that they were required, these small churches, to fall under this. So currently, churches, fraternal organizations are supposed, even though it's not happening, because I know all the church functions, all the big functions, they're not reporting, but it is required, so you just want to make sure it is.
Correct. The current statute states that the local health department can come in and inspect those organizations if they want to, so if they choose. Now, many don't. I mean, I'm sure in 114 counties, there's maybe 100 counties that don't bother or don't realize that we went beyond what the intent of our small town America is. But they have a right to if they want to do that. Now, it does state in the statute fundraisers, not just a potluck after church. It has to be a fundraiser, which actually from a health perspective, a safety perspective, what difference does it make if it's a fundraiser or if it's just a potluck after church? But I mean, that does specify that in the statute. So, yeah, it's there now if they want to, so if they so choose.
Any other questions for this witness? Yes.
Two. One. So are you saying that the county officials can come in anytime whether they're notified or not?
That's correct. That's correct. If they get wind, like by reading the paper or see a flyer hanging,
Or
like the Columbus Hall on Friday night, they're having a fish cry, they can come and do this.
And come in and inspect and do what?
They can ask if this food was prepared in a commercially inspected kitchen or a health inspected kitchen, and if it wasn't, if it was prepared in the homes, or even there at that facility, if it's not an inspected facility,
You're talking about
fellowship hall, right now.
Yeah.
Then they can say you can't serve this today. You can't have your fundraiser.
And so basically this will supersede that?
That's correct. That's correct. That's correct. Now, you have the state food code that is in place that the statute governs or is over. But then some counties also have their own food codes. I would say most of them do, especially the larger ones. They may go even further with this and do things at county level. But they still fall under the state statute, and if we exempt non-for-profits and religious organizations, it won't matter what the counties do as far as that's concerned. This would supersede that.
In one of the counties that I represent, they have these classes for them to come in and just kind of update them. It's kind of a public deal. You get a little certificate card and everything. And I highly suggest that anyone that's holding these events, that they have at least one person that has passed or gone through that training. And I don't know for sure, and whether it's they suggest or whether they're required. With this, if it is, if they are, do they, first off, do you know whether they have the authority to require that at least one person? And I'll put it this way, when I was doing my campaign, we were serving food and stuff like that, and I had to have, so I went through the class. They kind of implied to me that I had to have that or I couldn't serve it. So is this, do you know if this is required by an individual county or all counties are doing this, or and would this bill supersede that
Yes.
Requirement if it was?
This bill would supersede that. Right now, because the statute is the way it is, the way it's written now, if an organization is serving potentially hazardous food, then that gives the local health authority through the state food code and any other codes that they want to do at local level, it gives them the authority to come in and require just what you said.
Okay.
With this statute change, however, it will not do that for religious and non-charitable.
They can still come in and recommend.
They can recommend and you could take their recommendation and do as you. I mean, you could say, sure, we'll do that. That's fine, but it won't give them the actual legal authority to actually mandate that you do that. And we run into that same thing. We had a food code in the county in place for a couple of years. Now, the county commissioners are the ones that had to vote that food code in, and they could also vote to rescind it. After we started having lots of these issues come up, they voted to rescind the county food code, which helped to some of those extra things that they were having to do, non-for-profits and churches were having to do. It did help with it, but it's still, because the state statute is up here above all of that, it still gave them authority to shut them down or require that they go to a commercial prepared
Just
facility.
for clarification, then, when you brought up about the county commissioners, this was brought up in this one particular county, and the county commissioners wanted to back away from it. They backed away and said, hey, we don't know. It's up to the county health deal. So this would really, this bill would relieve them of even being considered to make a judgment on it.
That is correct.
Thank you, Representative Baxter. Are there any other questions for the representative? Seeing none, we now hear for testimony in favor of House Bill 1100.
I do. I have a couple here. Reverend Nicholas Inman from Marshfield.
Thank you for your time and asking us to come today. I represent the Missouri Cherry Blossom Festival and the church that I minister, the Elkland Independent Methodist Church. And this can of worms from Webster County came about, really, I think, started with our Cherry Blossom Festival's fundraiser, which we had last January, for Chili Supper. As a grassroots organization, I know many of you have been involved in such organizations, and we look forward to chili suppers and pie suppers and things in our rural community as a way to keep the festival So as a courtesy, I reached out to the health department and said we are planning to have this fundraiser, and that's when everything went bananas.
That's the mistake you made.
That's the mistake I made. That's correct. And from there, she said, well, first of all, none of your chili can be served in crock pots. Well, every little old lady on our festival committee, always comes to potluck prepared with their crock pot. So we went from there to she wanted us all gather at the same location in a certified kitchen, and everyone prepare, and this all was at the 11th hour, prepare our chili in the same place. And of course, folks had already invested time and money and things into their ingredients, and getting the 20-some people all together in the same church kitchen from different households. If you ask about ingredients, many people don't want to tell their famous chili recipes. And then she said, well, then all the meat has to come from the same source. You have to be able to prove that meat has come from a place that has been certified. Well, people had already invested time and money in purchasing their meat, etc. So we had a nightmare on our hands. Well, this opened up a can of worms into the church side. She said, if you're serving to the community, this is going to be the regulation. And I asked about the church. I said, we have church potluck dinners all the time. She said, well, you need to only be serving to your members. Well, there's many people who attend our church on a weekly basis and have for years who've never joined the church. Am I supposed to stand up from the pulpit and say, the dinner today is just for members, everybody else stay in your seats? And, we had quite an argument from that. So, this is how this all came to be, and we are concerned in Webster County. Our Cherry Blossom Festival brings in guests from all over the world. And, of course, that helps our local economy, as many of the other events and businesses that are being affected by this. We began to have to scrutinize whether people were bringing fruit pies or cream pies, etc. And it was a nightmare in the end. So our county commission, as Representative Fraker stated, decided that that was not the intent of which they had voted for the local ordinance. So now our county is governed underneath the state statute, and we really have a problem in Webster County that we are hoping that can be handled at a state level. So from our faith-based community and from our nonprofit community, I ask you to please vote for this and encourage your colleagues to vote for this as well. I think we've taken for granted, at least in Webster County, we've had potlucks and pie suppers and things for generations. And our fear is today that they're coming in and mandating that our potlucks and things be regulatory. And we fear that there are rural churches who cannot afford to have standardized kitchens. We fear they'll next be coming in to inspect the church kitchen, and the comment was made from our health department, well, we should be forming faith-based alliances, and our rural churches should be going into the city churches and preparing our meals there, and then driving 20-some miles back to the church to serve our meals. Well, that's not feasible, and you all, I know, are educated enough to understand that, and the expect the women of the church to do that with the men, whoever serving, it's just not feasible for us. So we're wanting things to be clear in black and white and solve this problem before it becomes a larger issue for us. My great-grandmother's generation sent a presidential candidate to the White House. You may remember People Plains, Georgia had a huge potluck dinner for Jimmy Carter, raised over $1 million. And if it was good enough to send a man to the White House, it ought to be good enough to come to Cherry Blossom Festival in Marshville. And that's how we feel about it. We feel that, as Lyndall stated, you know who brings certain things to potluck dinners. And when you go to a potluck dinner, or you are going to a fundraiser that you know is a potluck dinner, you expect that things are going to come from homes that could be questionable or could not be questionable, and you go at your own risk. If you don't want to go to a potluck dinner, stay at home. And go out to eat somewhere where you would feel that you're in a safer environment. We feel our health department has kind of gone to the extreme away from the intent, and some of the things have almost been slanderous to organizations and businesses, but the health inspections have been printed in our local paper anyways, and we're hoping to maybe put a stop to some of this here today. So I thank you, and feel free if you have any questions to shoot them at me, because we certainly want all your help that we can get.
Representative Booth.
You mentioned opening a can of worms.
Proceed.
I'm sorry.
You're freshman, so I will
Forgive me. Yeah. You mentioned opening a can of worms. You don't put those in the chili, did you?
No. Are there any other questions for this witness? Thank you for your time. Thanks for coming up to make a decision. Are there any other a witness form if you haven't already, and we have them at the end of the day.
My name's Gerald Neal. I'm the director of the Webster County Pantry in Marshville, and I've been for 20-some years. And to clarify what I've been listening to, the state law as it reads right now, any food prepared, so you cannot even give it away unless it's being cooked in the state of food kitchens. And that's your current law. You can't even have a church dinner open to the public. And that's what the law currently says, and that's what we're trying to fix. You know, you can't even give it one. You can't even do it freely. You know, because they say, well, maybe we can get around by doing a donation though. You know, the state law says the 99 one. You know, you give it away. It has to be cooked in the state food kitchen. So, then with the food pantry, we don't do any cooking on site anyway. But our food pantry is made up of 14 different churches. All my churches do the fundraising for us. We operate strictly on donations. We're just finishing up building a brand new building that costs $120,000 with donations. So we have to be able to, you know, for the churches and civic organizations to do this. In the past, you know, we've had, like Randall said earlier, this is the signage we used to have. And since the health unit changed, you know, they're just following state law. That's the reason we're here. You know, they're doing what state law says. If it's not prepared in a state food kitchen, you can't do it. And your rural churches cannot understand it. There's no way. You know, a lot of small churches have small kitchens with two bath sinks. They can't put in a 3-bath sink. They can't put in a hand wash sink. You know, and all this other stuff. And they may be on lagoon. Well, if they're going to serve food to the public, that lagoon's going to have to be state approved. Can you imagine what that's going to cost a lot of churches? They're not going to be able to do it. You know, we've had civic organizations that, okay, we're not going to do fundraising. We can't, because we can't fight all the jobs. I heard one gentleman talk about the teaching classes. That falls, in our county, it fell on your local ordinance. I have a map here. Only a third of the counties in the state of Missouri have local county ordinances. The other 2/3 go by state ordinance only. So only a third of the counties even have a local ordinance. And that's where the local ordinance come in, because the state food code does not have fees, you know, and it does not have your training, you know, the classes. That's on your local level. So, in your local level, as all of you know, you can make your state code more stricter, but you can't make it weaker. You can't water it down. You can add more, you can add more regulations, you can add more costs and fees and stuff in. You know, our fees went from $10 on a commercial business to $200. You know, and so, well, that's no big deal for a restaurant. It may not be a big deal for some big restaurants or chains, but your small places, you know, of course, the nonprofits were exempt, but they still wanted you, you know, to do the safe food classes, which I have really no problem with that. But to bring all the kitchens up to state code, our church, Catholic Church, we just built a new hall a couple 3 years ago. When I designed it for state code. We've got about every civic organization in town using our hall now because we're the ones that pass inspection. And, you know, we rent out, you know, it's what it costs us for insurance. So, it's just, you know, and nationwide, you know, you'll see there's a big program going on about some little girls sitting have lemonade stands. Well, in our county, the way the state laws are set up, we can't do that in the state of Missouri. You cannot have a lemonade stand. That's going to lemonade has to be made in the state food kitchen. You know, it's only. I know the intent of the law was not to punish the nonprofits and the civic organizations. And with the signage, you know, like everybody said, you know what to do, what not to do. And as far, you know, when we have the potlucks and pie suppers are a big thing, pie options. You're not going to tell my mother or my grandmother they got to cook it in the church kitchen. They're used to their stove. You know, the old people don't measure the ingredients, you know, if you want to list the ingredients. My grandmother, she tests the apples, we eat them well. We put more sugar and eat a little more of that. She didn't have a recipe. So, I mean, we've got to get it back where what I call common sense prevails. So.
Okay, well, thank you for your time. Are there any questions for this witness? Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify in favor?
Good afternoon, my name is Bruce Ellis, I just want to go on record of being in support of the general principle of taking the teeth out of some of these local jurisdictions where they really overstep their reasonable bounds. Reverend was, he was pretty cordial in how he treated the local health departments. I know some of the reaction would be in a local club that I used to belong to. They'd say, if you want to do this, we're just not going to do it, charitable stuff. We're just going to quit. If you had to go through those, jump through those hoops. And if you don't believe that, that local group used to, from their breakfast that they sell and raise funds, they had a Christmas. They do a basket, put a turkey in it, show you how government programs eventually deteriorate the charitable functions. We need to take that, remove those options. In this case, they took a basket to a lot of needy families. They did until they took it to one family who was getting plenty of government support programs and said, "Don't you have any ham?" And so they quit that program. You know, that's how they'd react to a government that step in and say, "We're going to inspect your breakfast." They would just say, "Well, we just quit." So it deters the initiative from charitable organizations, not just the inconvenience to church organizations.
Are there any questions for Mr. Phillips? Is there anyone else here who wishes to testify in favor of House Bill 11? Seeing none, is there anyone who wishes to testify against House Bill 11?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Janet Murray. I'm with the Randolph County Health Department. I've been an environmental health specialist for 35 years. Randolph County does have their own ordinance. We've had our own ordinance for over 25 years. We do inspect charitable and religious events. I've never closed one down. I've heard some testimony here today that I don't know where it's coming from. For example, the lemonade stand just mentioned. We don't regulate those. I don't know anybody, and I know a lot of people across the state, who regulates a lemonade stand. Well, it makes them even get a permit. We do have our religious and charitable groups get permits. We don't charge them for it, of course. We work with them to make sure that their events are successful. Never had a group that said, "Oh, this is too much work, we're not going to do it." We've worked with them for years. There are several things mentioned, and I can address each one, but I don't want to take all your time up here. Some points I want to make. Education's been mentioned. When you fix food for the public, it's not like you're fixing it for your families, especially when you fix in large quantities, because there are some issues about cooling food off and the length of time that it takes that bacteria can grow in the food that can't be cooked out, and that can cause foodborne illness. That's a fact. One of the other issues is people, when they bring food from home, quite often, if they have their own chickens, they're going to use their own eggs. I had a VFW group one time that slaughtered a sheep on their parking lot and wanted to use that particular meat, uninspected meat. You know, things have got to come from approved sources. They don't have to be purchased the day of the event. They don't have to be purchased at, Joe's grocery store. They can be purchased at any retail food store that handles food. When you have an illness that occurs with a charitable or fundraising group, it's very difficult to track where the food came from, who got sick. There was an outbreak in Freeburg a few years ago, and there were a number of people that brought food to this event from home. It was one of the counties that did not regulate their temporary, we call them temporary events. And the gravy made about 50 or 60% of the people that were at that fundraiser sick. A friend of mine happened to be there. He was out of work for 2 days, and he's a banker. And he had salmonella poisoning and was out of work for 2 days. So there's costs to it also. One thing
you've mentioned it a little bit, but I want to expound on it. Local patrol. Missouri has always been a state where the locals passed the laws they needed for their area. And it was up to those locals, to determine what those needs were. I have the city of Moberly, the city council has passed their code. My county commission passed our food code. So we have a code that's uniform across the county, and it's what they wanted. A lot of my fundraising groups that I've worked with for all these years, they want a day. They appreciate the fact that we are trying to help them, not stop them, but help them to make sure their food is safe so nobody does get sick. Because if somebody does, where's the liability? It's going to be on that, it's going to be on that church. It gives the church a bad name, or the Boy Scouts, or whatever. There's liability there. And our whole purpose is to assist these people. We are not there to put them out of business or stop events. We're there. We're members of these communities. Heck, I've worked on a bunch of these myself, I participated in numerous fundraising events. Cause to the outbreak. Randolph County specifically. Back in 1994, our country club was having a dinner, and they served food all the time. But it was right before Christmas, and they had a bunch of people starting to get sick, and I didn't find out about this until about 5 or 6 days later. It was actually after the New Year when I got wind of it. And the lady that called me, I talked to her quite a bit, and she told me the names of a few people that were there, and they were people I knew. And I called, and there were a bunch of people that got sick. And this was an easy outbreak, because the country club, when I went and talked to them, they had a list of everybody that had been there during those 2 days. They had a couple of parties, so it was very easy to contact these people. There were 189 or 190 some people during that 2-day period where people started getting sick. And I was able to contact, I couldn't contact all of them obviously, but I contacted over 100. Out of those, 89 people were ill. 89. It took us, for that investigation, it took 3 of us, 3 days each, and then plus me as the supervisor, another 2 days to write up this outbreak. The cost of the department alone was $2,600. So if you have, 1 or 2 of these that happen a year, local public health isn't getting much subsidies from the state or the feds anymore. We're getting a few tax dollars, and that's about it. It's a big cost to us. It really is. So that's basically what I wanted to address. But I want to emphasize again, I know a lot of people across the state that have been around so long. I'm one of the old war horses. And, we don't want to stop these events at all. We don't want to hinder them. We only want to help them to make them better. If the kitchen where they're talking about cooking the food doesn't have the proper facilities, there are things we can help them with to make sure that they can do it there and that the facilities are proper. For example, you mentioned 3-compartment sinks. We can use tubs for sanitizing. Plastic tubs, everybody has those. Hand wipes, you can use disposable hand wipes if you don't have a hand washing thing. We prefer you have a hand washing thing, but we can help with cooling things off. I give out cold packs by the dozens to groups like this so they can keep things cold. I give out a lot of different things to people. So, I understand where you're coming from in this, but I hope that you will seriously consider, let the local areas decide what they do and don't want. Making a statewide law like this, it doesn't work. And you're talking about exempting the Class 1s and the charter county. Why? Because there's a lot of events go on there, and their representatives and senators probably wouldn't vote for this because they know that there's a need for these to be affected. Again, we're there to assist these folks. We're not there to hurt them. And so, please, let the individual counties decide, the city councils decide whether they want to limit these or not, rather than the state government doing it. Thank you. And I do have copies of my testimony for you.
Thank you for your testimony. And we have questions for this witness?
Jim Clark.
Okay.
Jim Clark.
Proceed.
You, in your story about all those people getting sick, did you guys ever find out what caused the sickness?
Yes, one of the waitresses that prepared salad had norovirus, and she was unaware that she was coming down with it. That's a very, very virulent virus, and it makes people very sick. And it's about a 2-day life cycle. But and it was not she. So a lot of the staff was sick too. The club manager was sick, chef was sick, so she infected quite a few.
So, would you guys have been able to catch that before?
Not necessarily, and I'm not saying we could, because viruses are something, they do not grow in food. They're transmitted from a person to a food. We're not going to catch every one. But if we could start out talking to the folks, finding out what they're going to do, their procedures, if they've got some procedures that maybe need a little tweaking, we can help them with that. We could tell them and show them how to cool things down quickly. 99% of what we do is not the inspection. In fact, in my county, we have a lot of people that do a lot of events all the time. And we know who they are, and they come to us. But a lot of times, we just talk to them and give them the permit. We don't even go out and inspect maybe once every 2 years or something like that. There's not enough of us to be out every weekend doing these things.
Thank you. That's all.
Yes. Anybody else?
Thank you, Representative Monk.
To inquire and respect the comment.
Proceed.
I think what you did as far as the education is concerned, if it's brought across the state, I think it's great. It's wonderful. If for speaking against this bill, then really what you're saying is don't pass a law, let the individual cities or the counties decide on an individual, right? Is that what you're saying? Well, if that's the case, then we got decisions clear across the state that could be 114 different decisions. And I think what the concern is from a lot of these churches or nonprofit organizations is someone coming in and mandating to them what they can do and can't do. And I know some of the counties don't do that, but some of them do. And I think this testimony that you had here, and there was one in my particular district that they feel like they're being threatened and basically came short of shutting them down. Whether they actually told them they were not going to shut them down, that's what they perceived, and that's what the constituents in that particular county that's in my district were really, really concerned about. When they approached the local commissioners, and it wasn't in a city, it was out in the country, and so really the cities wouldn't have anything to do with it, so it's really kind of back on the commissioners. They didn't want to have anything to do with it. They said, well, it's whatever the county healthman says.
I understand that.
So if we do nothing, then we're back to letting the individual county health nurse kind of mandate whatever they feel like it is, or whether it's a perception or whether it's real or not, influencing these people that they're going to be shut down. It's more or less a threat to them. So, I think the bill can kind of set a pace to let the organizations know what they can do and what they can't do. I would hope that the county health people would not stop their education. I think your idea is great. Let's get in contact with the churches and these non-profit organizations, maybe on a public announcement, say, hey, if you're having these events, let us come and give you some guidelines. Let us help you. And if they don't do that, then the responsibility is on them. But I think it's a fear of being mandated of what they can do and what they can't do. And that's what I see is the biggest obstacle. But I wanna compliment the county health nurses for what they do in the education. I mean, I did go through the course, and it opened my eyes about just common sense things that you really ought to do when you're serving food, and I can compliment you on it. But as far as mandating people how they need to cook and what they need to cook and where they have to have kitchens, it's I really don't know that. I'm sorry.
Can you have a question in there somewhere?
Yeah,
I want to.
Yes. Well, my question was what was the whole purpose of speaking against it or shutting it down?
Because, one other thing I failed to mention. Statute 192-300 gives county commissions, boards of health, city council, the ability to pass these ordinances that are a little stronger than the state. Let me also educate you just a little bit. The state law, if you're working under the state law, which I don't, but if I was, I cannot go in and shut down an establishment without an order from the director of the Department of Health, which usually takes about 6 months to pass. So anybody saying, well, we're going to shut you down, that's not going to happen unless you have your own ordinance. In the times that I've, had to do closings, it's never been a charitable event. It's been restaurants that, don't want to comply. But I understand what you're saying. But when you are when you're in an area where you've had an ordinance, you've had it for 25 years, and now suddenly the state is wanting to say you can't do that anymore. That's kind of stepping on our toes when we've worked so hard, we've educated so much. We've worked with these groups, and they appreciate what we do. I mean, I have people tell me that every day when I come out and do an inspection. They'll say, we appreciate that you're here, you're looking at what we're doing to make sure we're okay. But we're not doing anything we shouldn't. So, thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, Representative Brooks, you have a question?
Yes, good morning.
Proceed.
Ma'am, do you think that if counties, this law was enacted, that counties may be able to pass their own ordinance, not to supersede this because they can, but to maybe modify it for their own means, to maybe to help out their own individual needs?
I'm not quite sure. Are you saying to change it?
Because you can't pass an ordinance through a county or a city that supersedes state law. Do you think
Yes,
that they could?
You can add on.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Don't you think that they can add on to these things to accommodate their needs in their particular county?
The way this is worded, I don't think so, because it says that we can't inspect them. I can't permit them. So the way that this legislation is worded, I don't think so.
Okay. I'm tricking you there because I'm not an attorney, so I couldn't give you the right opinion.
Yeah, I understand.
My colleague here is not. But that's kind of one of those things that it's a little higher power than my education is. So that's.
I'd like to say we wouldn't even have to do any inspections on some of these places because, when my son was little, I was out every weekend inspecting things. But, when we inspect, we don't just look for what's wrong. We look for what's right, and we educate while we're inspecting, and we explain if there is something wrong. We explain why. In a different way. I'm sorry.
Representative Craig.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be quiet on that as a member of the committee. I know I've presented the bill too, but thank you for your testimony today. It is good to hear the other side of this issue, and it sounds like probably in your county that you're reasonable and that you understand what we're trying to do here. Unfortunately, and Reverend Inman was absolutely 100% correct, and I'm firsthand knowledge. The issues we're dealing with in our county are absolutely unbelievable, if I can say it that way. And I think that the inspector we had prior to the current health administration we have there, he was very reasonable, a good man, served in Iraq and came back and always worked with us well for 10, 15 years. The placard that Mr. Neal presented, he asked that we put a placard up, but he didn't mandate or dictate or say that you couldn't bring a crock pot of chili from home for a chili supper. He didn't do that. Yet the current folks are telling us that, and that's the difference. And
I understand that.
And I think that we've got to do something to be able to get back to where we were. We're all for education. We're all for. Matter of fact, this bill doesn't say that you still can't come in and suggest or inspect or look over or whatever. It doesn't say that. What this bill says is you can prepare food in a private home or other area for distribution to the end consumer at a charitable fundraising event. That doesn't say we don't welcome you to help, with an overlooking the situation or even an inspection. And as a matter of fact, the large events, I would still recommend that we would want you to inspect, and we would want to make sure things were safe. But we've got to allow a crock pot coming from home. We've got to be able to do that at potlucks.
It's not
chili
the crock
suppers.
pot, it's the way, it's whether they cooked in that or not. Holding in a crock pot, fine.
Well, again, as
And-
for testimony, that's not what we've been told. See, we're hearing,
I know.
we hear all this different
I've been there
viewpoint.
longer, so I've worked on the committees with the state folks and everything
Sure.
else, and I'm not trying to say you're wrong or anything else. I'm just saying, and I'm not going to say that some inspectors don't interpret things a little differently. But passing this as it is would simply hinder something that's worked well in a lot of counties for years, and why throw the bathwater out with the baby?
Do you allow, let's say at the county fair, a pie auction where the ladies bring pies from home? Would
Yes.
you allow that?
Yes. Now, we would say they could not bring cream pies because they, and I actually have a newspaper clipping from where we had an outbreak with cream pies.
Even if they're kept in the cooler and
If
and
they are
carried in
made
a carrier?
at an approved place, okay, and that's one of the things that I've stressed. If somebody wants to do cream pie, if they want to go to their church and do it, or a lot of times they'll go to the Eagles Club, the VFW. There's a lot of places that they can go and do it. They can't bring cream pies from home. We don't know where the milk's coming from. We don't know where the eggs are coming from. They could be milking their own cows. And, that's an issue. Raw milk is an issue.
Okay, what about the Amish?
The Amish, I've actually got an Amish bakery.
Yeah, we got 3,500 Amish.
Yeah, I know. I've got a bunch. We allow them to do the cakes and the fruit pies and the breads and cookies and all that stuff. The cream pies, no. And I will say, I say no, but it goes on. I know it does.
Exactly.
My Amish bakery,
Exactly.
yeah. And we try and look the other way on some of this stuff. When we can, we do. But when it becomes a policy, a law, where where you're saying you can't, the health department can't come in.
It doesn't say that.
It
says that we will allow food prepared in a home.
That's I'm a great cook, and I cook a lot at home, and I know how to handle it. But I know an awful lot of people that you make 10 gallons of chili, and they're going to sit it in the refrigerator at home, and it's going to take 72 hours for that chili to cool down, and you're going to have an outbreak, and that's my concern. I'm strictly on public health.
I'd like to make sure we have limited time, we want to make sure.
Right, and there's other folks here.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you.
I want to hear from another witness who is opposed to House Bill 11.
I'll be very brief. I'm Kayla Reichenberg with the Columbia Boone County Department of Public Health. I also represent the Missouri Environmental Health Association, where I serve as vice president and president of that association. I have 13 years of public health experience, all in Columbia Boone County. We have a county ordinance countywide. We inspect approximately 200 of these temporary food events on an annual basis. Many of them are not-for-profit. We've inspected these facilities for many, many, many years. Actually, our health department was looked at by the FDA and many folks nationwide for our outreach and contacting some of these not-for-profit agencies with our education that we do. The only other thing I would also like to add to that is annually the City of Columbia puts out a citizen satisfaction survey. And one of the top two every year for numerous years public health concerns the city of Columbia residents have is food safety. It annually ranks number 1 or number 2 in that citizen satisfaction survey in public health. So it's important to our citizens, it's important to us, and it's our duty as public health with our motto to promote, prevent, and protect.
Thank you. One of my favorite shows on television is Restaurant, what is it called? Hospital or something.
Oh, or kitchen nightmares.
And I can say that as a consumer, I like what you do, and I want to make sure that what I'm not seeing and what I'm paying for is expected. Because I watch that show and it terrifies me. But I also see that when I go at the church where I go to, I kind of have an idea, try to get an idea which family's dish you kind of want to avoid, and which families that you kind of fit.
More than two.
So I can see it from both sides. I appreciate your testimony. Are there any questions for this witness? Okay. Seeing that, is there anyone else who wishes to testify against House Bill 1100?
And I too will make it very brief. My name is Tiffany Clausen. I'm the director for the Cass County Health Department. Been there 16 years as inspector and as the director. We too have many organizations that come in and do their fundraisers, chili suppers, spaghetti things, you know, you got the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, things like that. And they contact us. That's all we ask. Contact us. We give you a permit free of charge so that we can educate you. And that is our concern, that we may lose that opportunity to do that education. I know it says they may contact the health department, but for some of them, they may just go ahead and, well, I don't have to, so I'm not going to anymore. And I would hate for them to lose that opportunity to get some education. And we do just a very brief education, the do's, the don'ts, and why. And when we have explained things to our organizations, they go, oh, I never really thought about it that way, that, you know, maybe having, you know, this cooked at home with the dog on the counter or something is probably not a good idea. And we're not looking at potluck suppers, you know, where you're after church and you're having your potluck supper and the parishioners or your invited guests come. That's not my concern, Cass County. My concern is more the church having a turkey dinner and it's open to the public. You know, you said the potluck dinners, you know, I mean, I grew up in a small town. We had our our potluck suppers at church and stuff. You knew which families to avoid, yes. But if you're coming in from the general public to a church thing, you don't know that because you may not know. I mean, in a larger community, you're not going to know who's fish to stay away from. So that's some of our concern. It's just if they're nonprofit, it does not alleviate our public health duty to investigate a newborn illness. So if an illness happens, whether it's at a church function or, you know, a restaurant, we still have to inspect it and investigate it. It hinders us in a way sometimes if we don't know that chili supper happened, because we can't ask the questions. You know, we usually say, where did you eat last? Well, most people are going to think, where did I go out to eat? They're not going to think, oh, I ate chili supper last week. So it kind of hinders us in a way. I just ask that you consider that when you're considering this bill, and that's it.
Thank you, Tiffany. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, is there anyone else who wishes to testify against House Bill 1100?
All right. I'm also from Cass County. I've been an inspector for about 13 years now.
And what's your name?
My name's Chris Saxton. I also worked with Jackson County before I came to Cass County. In Jackson, we did inspect, basically, if you're doing a potluck dinner or something we consider a private party, we didn't inspect. It was only after we started seeing signs where it was open to the general public. We had some chili lunches, we had 700 people. And so we really needed to make sure that those were inspected, that we came to educate people. Now, through our ordinances, we got it so nonprofits pay the rest of people. It was $25. And it pays for us to go out there and do the inspection. Now, of course, we didn't allow them to make it at home because that's part of the FDA's code. That's where we get it. That's where state gets that code. Now, however, we would let them use their church kitchen even if it wasn't permitted. Because Janet said, use tubs for the street department, saying we just want to be there to inspect it to see if that's being used, so that we can see what the sewage is in. Now, I'm not sure what the liability is, just 2006 in Minnesota, a church had basically a spaghetti pit. Now, the meatballs had salmonella on. What happened was 17 people got ill. I think it was 3 had kidney failure and 1 died. Now, I believe it was some of the volunteers there, they decided to sue that meat company that got sick. Now, kind of unexpectedly, that meat company then went back and sued those church ladies that volunteered there that made the meal. And they claimed it was negligence. Because when the health department came in later, they did not inspect beforehand. One was time they didn't inspect. But when they came in to do the basic epidemiology of it and looked at the test, they saw that there was a lot of problems with the way that they made the food and all that stuff. So I don't know. It took 3 years, and I'm sure a lot of money for that organization. But
I do have a question. Because I was wondering about wild game. So in Missouri, you cannot sell root, correct?
Correct. It's not inspected.
So can that ever be served at any public function?
Not a public function, a private function, but again,
If it is inspected pre and post mortem, it can be served.
That by the Missouri Department of Ag.
No, it's not, yeah, well, but it's in
So
food code.
it would have to come from a deer farm,
Correct.
basically. It could not be an animal that's harvested.
There is, though, a provision that allows a wild game dinner for certain.
So if you were to have squirrel biscuits and gravy
In the Capitol.
in the Capitol, I'm not saying it's
Have at it, guys.
that would not because that was not those animals were not inspected before or after.
Correct.
That would not.
There's certain provisions that allow that. I can't quote that exactly, but there are certain provisions that allow for. I think it's not just not for profit. It's more specific than that. But there is a provision for that. I can certainly get that information for you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions for you? Seeing none, thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify against House Bill 1100? Seeing none, is there anyone who wishes to testify for informational purposes only on House Bill 1100? Seeing none, that ends the hearing on House Bill 1100. We will now move. I understand there's some that have to get back to a hearing quickly, and I understand, appreciate your time. But we're now going to hear the opportunity to hear from our host. We have Jane Rackers, who is standing in the doorway. And Jane, do I turn it over to you now? Yeah. Or do I turn it over to Mr. Fox?
Well, either way, if you don't mind, we have to if I may invite them.
Yes. Before anyone leaves to testify, make sure that you get a witness form.
And I know you will.
Thank you very much.
Go all the way to the end here.